Welcome to LIS754, Systems Analysis and Design. This is the first video in the requirements session. In this video, we will review what it means to develop requirements. This is the overview. We will have another video on gathering requirements and another video on processing requirements. Requirements is very much like the issue of problem solving, of defining exactly the right problem to solve. This is, according to Fred Brooks, who's a leading expert in software development, the single most difficult part of building a software system, deciding exactly what to build. This is the most complicated part of the conceptual work. The detailed requirements, the interfaces between people and machines and to other systems. I really love this statement. No other work so cripples the resulting system if done wrong. So very much like solving the wrong problem, like building the billing system that nobody wanted, building a system that people want but that does not work according to their needs is just as bad, and it is very difficult to rectify later. If you build a system that overlooks significant components, it's very difficult to come back and build that, and we'll be talking about this throughout this session. So what do we mean when we talk about requirements? This is a word that could be, is sometimes loosely used. For our purposes, a requirement is a single documented physical and functional need of a system that a system must be able to perform. It's a statement that identifies a function. That is an attribute, a capacity, a capability, a characteristic, a quality that a system has to have to give value and utility to a customer. We can think of a requirement in terms of a simple example like an ATM at your bank. You want to go up to the ATM and you want to, what are the things that you want to do? A requirement is to be able to get money out of an ATM. That's a functional requirement. That is a singular, and we can describe exactly what that means to get out cash, right? We can describe that in very specific detail. We can have another requirement of checking a balance, another requirement of depositing a check. So those are, or depositing, right, so depositing a check, depositing cash, all of those are what we could just call a requirement. And requirements are the component that connects our business case, our proposal, our idea, and the benefits that we described of this project, the goals that we've described from this project, and the outcome. This is the bridge. This is the thing. These requirements are the things we are going to do in this system. And those things need to be able to support our business case, support our project goals, and are the basis for the project outcome. There are a number of ways that we could break down types of requirements. There are business requirements, basically why are we doing this project? And those are things that get dealt with in project scope statements and project charters, in project proposals. So you have already gone through and done that process of thinking through the business requirements. We need this system to accomplish, we have this problem, we need a system. The system is going to take care of these problems in these ways, resulting in these benefits. You have already done that. If we take our ATM example, Banks wanted to implement ATMs for a number of reasons. One is to increase customer satisfaction so that people could have access to their money. They wanted to cut costs by not having to have as many branches, that they could have these smaller um, building footprints and fewer personnel costs. They wanted to be able to well, and those are two big ones. I'm not an expert in banking systems, but you can see what that. So that's the business requirement, and then the functional requirements. We just rattled off a few. Depositing money, checking balances, getting money out. So when we think about our functional requirements, we want to think about it in a couple of ways. We want to think about what the user can do. The user can walk up to the ATM and get their money out. We need to think about it in terms of how the software is going to meet those specific needs, um, and what are all the different pieces that we're going to need to make that happen. And when we get all of those pieces together, that becomes our functional specification. So the functional requirements drive the whole way that we describe what this system is going to do. And that's the primary goal of our whole project, is to create this functional specification, what the users are going to be able to do and what the software needs to do to meet those needs. There's a third kind of functional requirement or type of requirement that we will only address tangentially in this course, and that's technical requirements. And in fact, for the functional requirements, the next 4 weeks we're going to be focusing on these functional requirements. So in this course, in this session, we're focusing on the user-centric needs. We're going to talk about process flows, which is another way to describe functional requirements. What are all how are the software how does the software work? How is the software going to flow? We're going to talk about data requirements, another component of this. We'll talk about user interface designs, another component of the functional requirements. So all of these, the next 4 weeks, we're really focusing on requirements. We will talk a little bit about the technical requirements, which is how we implement. So the business requirements are why, the functional requirements are what, and the technical requirements are how. We will briefly talk about how we could implement our systems, how we take these user and functional requirements and turn them into software. We will spend a little bit of time looking at architectures, how we would take these functional components and turn them into technical components, but only at a pretty high level. And then one could get very, very specific, and if we were in a computer programming course, we would want to talk about, or a computer science program, we would want to talk about program specifications, but that's a little beyond the scope of this course. So here's how we can think about functional requirements, what we're about in this course. User requirements, what things that people want to do, how intended user groups want to interact with this system, want from this system. We use that example of an ATM. You are going to do that. You are going to figure out how users are going to interact with your system this week. That's the goal of this week's. Next week, we're going to think about process requirements, workflow, and data transformation rules. So we'll spend all next week talking about that. We're going to spend several weeks talking about data requirements. How do we capture this data? How do we describe this data? How do we organize this data? What data needs to be persistent? What data is temporary? How do we ensure the accuracy and the quality of this data? All of those are things that we're going to talk about for a couple of weeks. And then usability requirements. How do we make this system usable for people? And we'll talk about that as well. So the next few weeks, this is what we're functioning on, or focusing on, excuse me. So what we want to do is get to a specific statement about an intended function that describes what the system is going to do, the characteristics that the system must have. It must behave in this way. On the needs of the users while they are using this system. And the goal is to make it as specific, unambiguous, and clear as possible. It is a given that requirements will change over time as the project moves forward. And so the more clearly we can have described it, the more easily we can find the things that need to change and can see in advance what is going on. We'll actually spend some time at the end of the session talking about how we manage requirements and changes to requirements as a project goes on, because every time a requirement changes, it impacts all the other analysis that you will do. So if you have to radically change a requirement, your data needs will change, your process flows will change, your user interface will change. So every change has a ripple throughout the system. As we spoke at the very beginning of this session, it is very difficult to fix bad requirements. I read a study a couple of weeks ago that showed that upwards of 80% of system development projects are considered unsatisfactory at some level because of bad requirements. And so it is our goal to be specific, unambiguous, and clear so that we know what we're building up front. If you have questions, let me know. There are a number of other videos to watch. Let me know if you have questions. Talk to you soon.